Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we've got a little bit of a box office update as estimates tend to be not completely accurate. By Monday, we get the adjustments to those numbers, and so some of the box office numbers have changed. And in fact, earlier in the day, before Playing with Fire got officially updated, Playing with Fire actually came in number 3. Now, of course, it's gone back to being at number 2, or back to being number 4. But what's more interesting is that now that we've got these newly adjusted numbers, oh my goodness gracious, this is fantastic. So, Ford v Ferrari came in with $31.4 million. Very strong start to this film. Very solid film as well. If you have not seen my previous videos talking about how I think that it just goes to show you that a film that's not a part of a franchise, that's not going to get a sequel, that's not going to get a prequel, is something that a lot of people would love to see. All it really needs is enough time and attention given to it, a good marketing campaign, and then the people will show up for it. If only Hollywood would learn, hey, good movies that are done well, that are made well, and promoted well can do well at the box office, while films that don't hit those criteria can fail. Anyway, Midway came in with $8.75 million, coming in at number 2 this weekend, a 51% drop, which is actually not terrible. Again, a 50% drop from week 1 to week 2. That is not bad at all. It's a film that it's still going to be a little bit difficult for that film to really be able to remake some of its money because it was about $100 million film or so. In fact, if you look to the box office summary, now that the international numbers have updated, when I broke this down earlier yesterday, I said that they might not have official updates for the foreign totals yet, but now we do. So the production budget was $100 million, meaning that it probably cost around $150 million to both produce and to market the film, and it only has made $73.3 million. And you got giant films like Frozen 2 coming out this weekend. You've got amazing films like Knives Out, which I know everyone in the channel is wanting to go see this weekend, that are going to provide some competition for it. And that definitely could leave this film as not being as big as, again, the domestic box office, I think, is a lot more than people expect it to be, but the international box office really is not showing up for it, and you need to have a giant international box office in order to be able to make up a film like $100 million budget. So it's still not looking like the film's going to make that much money, if even break even. We'll have to wait and see what the official numbers are in a bit, because as you all know, films tend to make around 60% of their entire box office take in the first 2 weeks. This is now the second week that it has been out, so it's not looking all that good. This is a film that probably won't get, probably will top out max $200 million, which I don't even think it's going to get to, looking closer to the $120 to $150 million range, which would not be enough to make its money back. So very sad, because I've heard a lot of really good things about this from people that have been speaking of very, very high praise about it. But what's interesting to me is these last two numbers. Charlie's Angels ended up being readjusted for $8.3 million. $8.3 million. That is absolutely abysmal for an opening weekend. It came in at number 3, and it almost was defeated by Playing with Fire, the John Cena-led film, kids movie, Playing with Fire, which came in with $8.3 million and actually only had a 35% drop. A 35% drop. Playing with Fire. Who in their right mind would have thought that that film would have had that little of a drop? Now, it hasn't really made a whole lot of money because its opening weekend wasn't all that impressive. It came in at number 3 in its opening weekend, but still, the percentage drop is the percentage drop, and it's really not all that bad. But the question then remains, well, then why is Charlie's Angels doing so poorly? Some people say it's because it's a bad movie. I have not seen the movie yet, and so I cannot speak completely to that fact. However, based on the marketing, based on the scenes that we have seen from the film, and based off of instant reactions from people that I trust who've reviewed the film, it's very clear that it's not a well-made movie. Even the critics can't hide from that. Even the critics are saying, oh yeah, it has problems, it has issues with pacing and effects, etc. But hey, girl power. And those are just the ones that are being kind to it. There are a lot of critics that are not being very kind to it, and I think that speaks volumes. This film is a rotten movie on Rotten Tomatoes, and for a film like this, which is getting so much random praise from these different groups like CinemaScore, which is, of course, a complete cop-out, it makes you kind of wonder about whether the positive scores are even that legitimate. But it's still a film that barely beat, within about $20,000, it barely beat Playing with Fire. That's awful. And so then we have to find out, okay, so if it's not a truly, if it's a bad movie, okay. What if it's not a bad film? There could be other things that could impact it. Yes, I think that it's all these things brought together, though, that it's not a very good, not a very well-made film, a film that no one was asking for, but also a lot of it has to do with the director. Elizabeth Banks. And Elizabeth Banks has been going off in these interviews, going after basically men in these interviews, blaming men. So instead of her admitting that maybe my film isn't that great, maybe no one was actually asking for this movie, instead she's like, oh, let me just go on the blame game. Like, that has ever helped. Do you honestly think, Elizabeth Banks, that this is going to raise sympathy with you? Do you really think that this is going to make people want to go see your movie because they're going to hear your words and say, oh, yeah, you're so right, and oh, I need to go see it because women power? Let's wait and see what that week 1 to week 2 drop-off is, because you're looking at a movie that will probably not make $3 million next weekend, which would be over a 50% drop, and that means that your film, even though it only costs about $48 million to make, will probably bomb. I want you to take that in for a second. We're not just dealing with a film that's not doing that well, but might make some profit. We're dealing with a film that costs almost nothing to make and might lose money, might barely break even. That is pathetic. That is a film no one wants to see. And when you say stupid stuff like this, Elizabeth Banks, it makes more sense as to why people don't want to see it. It has made me, I was originally going to see it for the channel just to be able to give a review for it. Now I have no desire, because why would I want to waste an hour and a half plus of my life watching some garbage that you made when you're spouting off crap like this? Even if I did allegedly buy a ticket to another film, why would I even want to waste my time with this nonsense? That is where I'm currently standing on this. Because, as I said, I try and watch things, maybe I could have used a Fire Stick allegedly to access it, but you know what? It's not even worth that. In my opinion, based on everything you're saying and the reviews and the trailers, I feel like I would literally be wasting my life. Like watching Unicorn Store. I don't know how I got that film. I don't know why I watched that movie. It was a hate watch all the way through, but that's time I can't get back. And I don't want to waste that on a film like Charlie's Angels 2019 when you got idiots like Elizabeth Banks saying, well, you've had 37 Spider-Man movies, so it's about time that we have our time. Meh. Seriously? Is this supposed to make us sympathize? Is this supposed to make us actually want to go watch it? Anyway, it says, director Elizabeth Banks, who was pretty hopeful pre-release, pointing out that she had previously made a franchise from nothing, Pitch Perfect 2, which serviced the women and girls I'm hoping also want to see a Charlie's Angels movie. I'm building on my business always. This seems like a natural step in that business plan. Let's just rewind that for a second. A film that was directed by a man, Pitch Perfect, which was significantly better than anything that you did, that is the movie that everyone remembers. When everyone talks about Pitch Perfect 2 and 3, they aren't very kind memories, because they don't even come close to. Yeah, people could say, oh yeah, it was fine popcorn entertainment, but the first film is legitimately a good movie. The other two, really not so much. And the big difference between those is the fact that you directed and took over almost full, complete ownership of the franchise from that point in time. Isn't that amazing that you're trying to use that as an example when that's a franchise that you kind of ran into the ground? You took a little bit too much on that. Oh my goodness gracious. And so let's see. So you're not even going to have the full conversation here? Really? Watch AV Club. Why am I not surprised here? But anyway, she said, you've had 37 Spider-Man movies, and so therefore we deserve to have it too. Or from IndieWire, Elizabeth Banks says, Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman were hits because they belong to the quote-unquote male genre. The new Charlie's Angels couldn't even crack the $9 million mark at the box office over its opening weekend. And now she's putting every single person on blast. It's because of men. It's because of toxic masculinity. That's the reason why the film is failing. It's not because the movie's bad. It's not because no one was asking for it. It's not because I was pushing this gender ideology in all the trailers and all the interviews prior to. That has nothing to do with it. Or does it have everything to do with it? Because in all honesty, anyone out there, if you heard a director blaming you, blaming an audience that hasn't seen it because they have no desire to, and they said it's because of your gender that you decided not to go see a film, do you think that you would end up going to see that movie? I'll wait. Because I'm betting that a lot of you wouldn't. I'm betting a lot of you would hear that and say, wait a minute, is this director, a Hollywood director, blaming me for my gender because her film isn't as successful? And the way that she is able to, because of course we come back saying, yeah, but what about, you keep saying it's because of sexism. Okay, Wonder Woman did great. Captain Marvel, despite it being a terrible film, also did great. And how does she respond? Well, that's because it's the male genre. Let me ask you, Elizabeth Banks, what franchise and what genre do you think Charlie's Angels was originally a part of? Do you think it was mostly women that were watching Charlie's Angels when it first came out in the 70s? Do you think it was mostly women that were going to see the films that came out in the 90s, early 2000s? You probably had more of an even split, to be honest, but if I had to bet, I would bet dollars to donuts that most men, or a lot of men, a lot more men than women, went to go see those films. And we can talk about how it was because of women being sexually exploited, etc. Because I'm right there with you. I think that's a problem. I think that's something that still pervades our culture to this day. As a theology teacher, as a religion teacher at a high school, I understand that. I'm willing to have that conversation. But for you to try and say that the reason why these films succeeded with strong female leads, and in the case of Wonder Woman, because Captain Marvel had a double director, but in the case of Wonder Woman, a film that was led by a female director, and your mindset is, oh, it was successful because it belonged to the male genre, and I'm trying to get past that. You're blaming everyone. You're blaming the genre. You're making excuses for successful female-led franchises, and then you're also blaming people. You've had 37 Spider-Man movies, and you're not going to see this because you're just a toxic male. And the smallest violin in the world couldn't even come close to the silence that is being responded to you because of that stupid comment. No one's going to want to see your film now. In fact, now more than ever, I would say this is going to motivate more people to say, I want to almost actively boycott this film, or at least I want to actively say, yeah, you wanted to see that? Oh, are you sure? Read this. Because if there's one thing that can motivate someone to not see a movie, it's stupid comments like this. Now, I'm not telling everyone to boycott this film. Again, we're all individual persons. We can all make our own choices. But I will say this much. If we want Hollywood, people like Elizabeth Banks, to get a message, the only way that they can hear that message is through money. And the only way that we can get that message through when it comes to Hollywood is by refusing to give our money to these people. Now, will they likely continue? Sure. But it's because we've had other films like Captain Marvel, which did have feminist imagery all throughout of it. I'm not talking about positive female empowerment. I'm talking about actual feminist imagery, which is a very different thing. Of course, that's a conversation for a different time. So we still have that problem because people will blindly consume certain content where the stuff's probably being a little bit more hidden than in films like Charlie's Angels, where it's being put on the forefront, where people like Elizabeth Banks is not hiding her agenda, is not hiding what she's trying to do with the overall film and what she wanted in an overall franchise. Yeah, she wanted that film to become a new franchise. And it's about time that we tell people like Elizabeth Banks and others in Hollywood, Brie Larson included. I'd even throw Rian Johnson into the mix as well. That if you try and push the narratives, if you try and blame the fans, if you try and blame the people not seeing your films for very legitimate reasons, saying this doesn't interest me, that is a totally legitimate reason. If I went up to a woman and I said, hey, do you want to go see the next Rocky movie? Now, there's many women out there that would say absolutely, but there are other women that would say, no, that's okay. Or if I were to ask a man, hey, do you want to go see the next, let me try and think here. Do you want to go see Casablanca on the big screen? Now, there's a lot of men out there, myself included, that would want to see it, but if a man said, that doesn't seem like me, that seems like more of a romance movie, I would say, I totally understand where you're coming from. Just because someone has types, just because someone has certain interests in certain genres, does not mean that they are hateful towards anyone that might be a part of those genres. Everyone has a different interest. All of us have different genres that we're more drawn to. There do seem to be biological or even societal differences between men and women about what they are more drawn to. But don't for a second think that you can call men sexist because they don't want to see your movie. When in reality, they could say a lot of legitimate things of, oh, this film doesn't interest me. I've never been interested in Charlie's Angels. Or even, hey, I heard this woman say, oh, this about Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman. Or even, well, you don't like it because you're a man. And it is totally legitimate for you to say, yeah, no thanks. Anyway, that's just my thought on here. What are your thoughts on what Elizabeth Banks is saying? Do you think that she's destroying her career as a Hollywood director? Obviously, people will still hire her because of wokeness, but if she's not a box office draw, I guarantee you that no one in their right mind, let me put it that way, no one in their right mind would give this woman another $40 million project, let alone a $100 million project at that. Because if this is the kind of nonsense she's going to spew, and if these are the kind of numbers that she's going to be pulling in, who in their right mind would do so? And that really is what comes down to. Who in their right mind would greenlit, protect, and promote woke garbage like this. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about this stuff and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.